All right, I'm going to call the Neary Building Committee Communications Subcommittee meeting to order. It is Friday, October 4th, 2024, and all of our voting members are present, and it's 9:05 a.m. First item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes from August 12th of 2024. It's a brief meeting right at the end of that larger live meeting. I don't know if anyone had any questions or comments on those.
I looked at the minutes this yesterday afternoon, actually, and they seemed okay.
Yeah, they look fine.
Okay, so I'll move to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Denise?
Aye.
Aye.
And I am I as well. Thank you for that. Next, kind of I put a bunch of things on this part of the agenda, but we don't have to necessarily go in the order, but I wanted to at least try to coordinate our discussion. Is obviously now that the special town meeting has passed, really coming up with a communication plan, because this topic will be certainly the part of much discussion, as we get to whatever date we select for the special town meeting. So I kind of chunked the agenda into 4 components, and I think we can take it any direction you all want to go. But I think it's really what my goal was here today is, assuming we're in agreement on a series of steps that we're going to take, providing that update to the full committee and letting them weigh in on Monday night, just saying this is where we're going. If you have other ideas or things either we as the communication subcommittee need to be doing and or things that other people think they should be doing, just really get those on the table between now and the holidays. I think there's different levels of engagement we want to be having at certain points during the project, but I think we really need to just understand in particular where people are supportive and why people aren't supportive outside of probably the 2 items we know thus far, and see if there's information that we can gather to help one to make an informed decision. And I just don't want to be in a situation come late spring, and arguably, I mean, you can just see it with the town meeting the other night on a very different topic. People will say they didn't know we were talking about this. Like I can't solve for that. But what I can solve is for people that do pay attention that may not have the right facts. So I figured we'd start with school tours. So Greg and I have had a discussion about this offline already. We have had some requests from folks that are trying to convince themselves that something needs to be done to the building. And I think it's important for them to see it firsthand and make their own assessment. Obviously, one could walk around the school outside of school hours, right? Especially when there's, sports and stuff on the weekend and there's other people on that property. But they don't get inside, obviously, without, obviously need to be there. So Greg is coming up with a few dates that work for him and his team to kind of open the building to the community. My expectation would be that we would try to, use that not only to walk people through the facility, but also to use it to further engage, right? So not just the 3 voting members here plus the school administration, but the more we can get our full committee engaged in that, just depending on, you may have 3 people show up, or you may have 30, or you may have 100, I don't know. But really just using it as an opportunity to educate and bring them up to speed on the project as a whole, but also see the conditions firsthand.
I think that's a great idea because, that was brought up in front of Roger and I the other night about, getting in and seeing the building. So I think that's really important. And maybe if we could use, I saw another agenda item, office hours. Maybe we could use the office hours, but also use a question and answer period, following the tour if anybody wanted to ask us questions.
Mm-hmm.
But the more that we can do, the better off we're gonna be, because, you know, again, the people do not seem to react until it's the 11th hour. And
Correct.
then we're in a bad situation. Do you think that this meeting, our special, will be prior to or after the annual?
After, but we do
After.
have a meeting this afternoon with the parties that would be involved in planning it to potentially get to a date, but
Okay.
it's definitely after.
Mhm.
Because we can't go any earlier than April 30th.
Correct.
So the annual has to be before that, I think, based on my understanding of the new vote they took the other night.
Now, will the language for the ballot, will that be called ahead of time? How are we gonna do that?
That would have to be, you basically would have a ballot printed
Correct.
and you would still take a ballot vote, even if it doesn't pass at the special town meeting.
Okay, so
Because
that the
then it would
ballot,
give you a chance, if the ballot passed, the town meeting didn't, because you have the different voting thresholds, it would give you a
correct.
chance to, it's not intuitive order,
Mhm.
but I think that's what we have to plan for in terms of our schedule of this outreach is
Mhm.
you're going to be likely looking at 2 events early May.
Mhm. Okay,
So Jason, I did speak with Keith.
Okay.
He's working with Brian, selecting 2 dates.
Okay.
I also asked Keith to reach out to Sam and do a video. Also have Terry do a video of the school for those who aren't able to make it.
Okay.
So those 3, 2 dates, 1 weekend, 1 evening, and then the video hopefully are another way people can interact with the building.
would we put that on our website, Greg?
Yes, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, no, I meant the video.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Okay. So once those dates are finalized by the district, we'll do a pretty aggressive advertising around it and go from there. Office hours, and I
Question,
specifically put various locations. I honestly don't know whether they would be attended well or not, especially this far out. But I do think, in particular, the group that Roger has been speaking to, right, in terms of understanding, and bringing the senior population up that use the Corderville Hall right now, making sure they're aware of where we're at because they may not be as engaged in every conversation that the schools are having, just given where they're at in their lives. So, but I wanted to kind of cast a wider net in terms of that's one demographic of our population. We certainly have school-aged population that, I know, for example, and I'm not suggesting we tap onto this, Greg, but like the principals each have their own, like, what do they call them? They're not office hours. They're
There are
coffee
hours,
coffee
principal
hours,
coffee
right?
hours.
Like the SOS has their own meetings, right? And then there's school councils. So just really getting a list of all groups that we think would cover as great of a population as we can, again, to educate them on where this is at so that we can kind of start to figure out what additional actions we need to have. I don't know how fast you start or how frequent you go, and whether there's any sort of prioritization, but I do think we need to get in some cadence, just if even if people don't come, that they see that there's a lot of discussion around the project, they'll choose to engage when they want to engage, even if it's not as early as we'd like them to engage. So what I wanted to do is try to figure out what those groups are.
Yeah, I think
But
I
go ahead,
agree,
Greg.
Jason. I think that the principal coffee hours one of the coffee hours could focus on the relocation plan.
Yeah.
And I think you'd get a captive audience, and then you could also at the same time just share information about the project and answer questions we can make that happen. And I agree with you. I think having, monthly coffee hours, although, we don't know what the attendance will be, I think it really is important as, it gets closer to the town meeting vote. People, you can say, well, we had office hours every month.
Yeah.
But there's a chance to engage.
And I think, one of the things that, I was also thinking is out, right, right, coffee hours are naturally going to happen during school hours, right? Some people's work schedules are more flexible than others. I'm thinking even evening times, right? Not necessarily that we need the school administration at all of them and stuff like that, but like if one of us just goes down to a public building and has it just like other boards and committees do, I think that will allow us to capture the full population without and start it late, right? You can even do 8 or 8:30, right? Say kids are in bed. We can do a few on Zoom as well. I think that will, naturally help. Roger, you put your hand up somewhere while I was talking there. So
I did, and it's just well, the first topic is the tours. And Denise, I'm not sure-
Roger, I'm not sure if it's just me. It's hard to hear you.
how about for anyone else?
I'll call it okay. It's not great.
Yeah, this is this problem that I continue to have, but I'll try to yell. So this is the school tour topic. And Denise, I don't know if you were still, if we were still talking at the town meeting when one of the,
Yes.
somebody came up and asked about the tour.
Mhm. Yep, I was.
Okay, so I think that I don't know whether this person wanted a separate tour, but I think that our approach should be to I guess kind of push people to do the scheduled published tours if they want a tour of Neary. You're nodding your head in agreement, I think, Denise.
And
Yes, I am.
I've received some individual reach outs too, which is why Greg and I had this conversation because we obviously have certain hours we cannot even consider doing tours,
Right.
which is a good chunk of the week, and we need to be cautious of everyone's time, and we need to, capture kind of, yeah.
Absolutely understand. And so, and you're saying, how will this be advertised, Greg?
Well, I think we can work with Mark Purple, whatever communication vehicles that Mark has, and then school communication vehicles.
Okay. So my second topic is something that Jason just mentioned, which is the senior center situation. Can you still hear me?
We're good.
So when I spoke with Pam about putting together a kind of a, whatever we want to call it, a coffee or something at the senior center, and have it be advertised so we get, as many folks as we can there. She said that the best way to publicize it, and I think I've mentioned this before, would be through their newsletter. And the newsletter that's going out next is for November, December activities. But she has said that she would like me to get her, whatever I'm going to get her to announce this early October. So I think I have sort of early next week to get something to her. And I'm not, I'm looking for sort of some help on what we should put in their newsletter, okay, to entice people to, to come and learn about this. We had a very, very positive response from the Dole Men's Club, but that's not necessarily, well, I think it's just not. It's not really an accurate representative of the overall group of seniors as far as you know, just as far as, well, it's, you know, it just isn't.
So,
But it was a great response. But now we're looking to get a lot more seniors, information about this.
so we're gonna have to draft a paragraph anyways for office hours outside of that population. So I think it can be the same paragraph,
That would be good.
right? So we'll get you that. But my suggestion, Roger, in terms of logistics would then be that you pick dates and times that work for you.
I'm
And
pretty,
if
yeah, and I'll be pretty flexible. I can actually make, you know, I'm gonna probably ask Pam to tell me, you know, to recommend some dates that she thinks, whether it's a day of the week or a time or something. We'll hear the most, we'll get the most, um, audience, the largest audience. And go ahead, Jason. So we'll pick some possible times and,
so pick some possible times. I would have a at least invite a friend with you, right? And we can have it on a rotating basis. It just cannot be Denise or myself because I
Right.
think it overlaps too much with this subcommittee in terms of communication that I just don't want to go there. It doesn't mean though that Denise or I couldn't cover though one of the dates. I just would
Mhm.
think that this group shouldn't be together 2 out of 3 of us, but you could take another member of Neary Building because I just think having 2 people listen to different perspectives will be helpful too. Not that yours isn't amazing usually. Just right to depending on the size of the group and being able to split up and have different conversations depending on what certain people's priorities or questions are. And I don't
well,
want it to all fall on you either, but I'm sure there's gonna be
well,
other groups that Denise or I target.
I do think having a second person there is a good idea. And you know, Greg joined me that first meeting, and I thought that went extremely well. Now I'm trying to be. I thought it went extremely well, not only because of who Greg is, but because of who Greg is, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
And I don't know if Greg, you think you could possibly be
I
available
would.
for
I think it's important that,
second one, but I think that helps. You know,
yeah, Roger, and I think the, if we set the dates, then if I can't make it, then, maybe Stephanie, because,
sure.
maybe another principal, but I think it's important for me to get out there as well. So yeah, that would be helpful to me.
Because to have somebody from the schools, I think is, I think it carries weight, you know, at a meeting like that. Okay,
And I'll go a step further, and I know he's not here to defend himself, but Mark, as town administrator, I'm going to defer to him and his team too. I think having not every single one, but obviously that's an important representation from the community as well. As much as it is a school, it's a community project that obviously has an impact, for on many things beyond obviously education.
okay. Well, I lied about only having two things, and since my hand's still up and
We have a limit here.
I'm in, I'm in front of Denise. There was another comment that was made as we were there in town meeting was referred to my Southborough.
Mhm.
And there's a post on my Southborough. I so I hadn't read it, and somebody suggested that this person suggested that I will make sure I go read it. So I was, you know, a negative post, if you will, about the project. So I was expecting to see a more significant post than I did. But the post that was being referred to, and this is a public post, really related to the
So
concern.
Roger, I'm gonna slightly cut you off because it's not on the agenda. I know what you're talking about,
Okay,
but that's probably a full committee. It relates to the site, right?
Right.
I'm sorry.
It relates to the site related one.
Yeah, so my question, trying to make sure we're tying it into communications, is how are we going forward going to be dealing with, in general,
Good
post
question.
on my
Yeah.
Southborough. How's that?
So I'm pausing.
Can
Go ahead, Greg.
I just interrupt too? I think going back to how do we communicate out to a larger audience? I think if we reach out to the community advocate and have them agree to do a monthly series for us leading up to the project, they'd be happy to.
Hmm,
That has a wide audience of, a varied audience. I think we should also connect back with the community advocate and just get on their schedule.
I
And
do
I-
agree with you that it has a wide audience, Greg. I find a lot of people are sending me articles from the community advertiser about all kinds of things that it do, so.
Yeah, so community advocate, very supportive of facilitating that. I think in terms of my Southborough, um, obviously we have to be coordinated. It becomes the public record anytime one of us reply to it. And I think it's important that it not just represent one person, right? So I may have a view, let's just say, of a specific post. That may not conform to how you would reply, Roger, or how Denise would reply, not to mention the 4 other voting members.
I agree.
Um, and I saw this back on the last building project I was involved with, where actually posts were anonymous, right? So you didn't even know who was posting. And at that time, the committee decided, instead of reacting to individual posts, that we would instead publish our own series of posts. So we basically did 2 at the time, because it was such a condensed time cycle of what we were trying to accomplish. We basically published our own 2 posts that essentially reacted to commentary, but it really in an effort just to provide facts. So it was a way to thread a needle of replying and acknowledging like where they're concerned. But I also think, for example, if you use the post you're referencing, it's just important for us to take that and make it a frequently asked question if we believe it's a frequently asked question, which ties directly into what we're talking about here, and I'm sure what Greg is anxious to talk about in terms of the website. But I think that's my natural course. I am the wrong chair of both the committee and the subcommittee. If you expect me to sit there and reply to individual messages, I'm not saying you implied that in any way, shape, or form either, but I think and I know others do, and that's just not necessarily, I think, the way to do it. However, right, we do get emails, right? And we have gotten emails as well as a committee. I think every email deserves a reply. The amount of substance that goes into the reply, I think, is going to require some level of discretion, especially if there may be conflicting views on that, right? If someone says, is the 3rd grade on the 2nd floor or the 1st floor, right? Like that's just a factual question once the design's in place. That's just an easy answer. Versus if someone says, I don't like the site or I don't like the cost, right? And we all know where our committee has done. So I think we could probably come up with some parameters, Roger, of like how to capture that and respond. Obviously, part of my agenda here is also social media, right? There's a lot of discussion that goes on in social media, right? Anytime we post something, there's naturally a series of comments and another part of usually unfactual information. The question is, do you react to every unfactual piece of information, or you just double down on getting the true facts out, and hopefully that does the trick, realizing that there's always going to be information out there that's incorrect about the project, no matter how much you try to correct it.
I can't agree more with everything you said, even though, I'm desperately trying to find something to disagree with, but, I'm sure that'll come at some point. But no, I up and down the line, I agree with what you've just said and how you characterized our, what we should and what our responsibilities are on, responding to communications.
Can I, whoops, Denise has her hand up, I think.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead, Greg.
The other piece is kind of proactively working, and then we talked about this, I think, in a past meeting, proactively working with my Southborough, getting good information to my Southborough, so that, again, the information that's published is accurate and helpful. And just like the community advocate, partnering with Beth and their reporters.
Agreed. So why don't I take the action of just reaching out to Beth from a My Southborough perspective and just seeing how she wants to cover this and what information we can provide going forward. Because I realize like just watching our public meetings may not be enough and may not be timely enough or may not be what she's looking to capture. And then Greg, why don't you or someone on your team take the community advocate part of that?
Perfect.
All right, Denise, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. And you may have already, and I might have missed it, defined what you're gonna do at the senior center, Roger. I think if we call it office hours, we might get more, so they'll understand it's a give and take versus they're being talked to in a presentation again. If you know, that you're the best judge of that, but I was thinking if we call it the same thing and they realize they can come in and have a one-on-one and ask a question, that may be received better than just, you know, being talked to or spoken to, I should say, excuse me. And the second thing is on the tours, would it make sense to have a tour just for advisory and the Board of Selectmen? Would that make sense as town officials?
We do that in Northborough. So
Okay.
we invite all the boards and committees
Mm-hmm.
to tour. We usually pick two schools to tour.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be that we do something similar and not just only pick Neary, but maybe also another site. Maybe it's Neary and Woodward. So I think it's something we could definitely arrange if the committee thinks it would be helpful.
Well, I think they have a different perspective. I think the town officials have a different perspective, and getting advisory on board and getting this Board of Selectmen completely on board, I think would be so advantageous. Just, that's my, you know, what I feel.
And just one last comment that I have, well, maybe not the last. Probably a conversation with Mark to really think about what the plan is if everything passes around. Are they studying what Finn could be? I think probably some answers would be helpful as people kind of navigate this. For example, the senior center, one of the communications that was clear when Roger and I met with the Dell Men's Club was they really liked their senior center. So
Really good point. I actually have an email out to Doug and Bill. I'm copying Pam. I haven't sent it yet, but I will be sending it drafted. I just haven't pressed send. Capital has been tasked with that, so I'm wearing my other hat sideways. And we're going to coordinate with the select board to try to understand the feedback of whether they want that to be, whether they would even consider Finn as senior, because I think we were hearing different things, and there may be a split view on that. But I agree, we have to have some information. If it's not going to be for the seniors, how is recreation then getting engaged in other, right? Is it town offices? Is it school administration? Is it 10 other, right? Like what is it going to be? We're not going to let it go empty too, right? So,
and the two areas where the school department, you know, the district is office space or central office. And I know that was brought up as something that the town of Southport would like to continue getting rent. And the other is preschool.
yeah.
Those are the two pieces that I think are important for people to like want answered.
Yeah. noted on that. In terms of other groups, so Roger's going to come up with a schedule for the senior center. I think there's I'll call it pre-elementary group. That's probably not the right, but it's the families that have not entered Southborough schools yet that we need to educate. They're the ones that candidly stand to benefit
Mhm.
more than it's definitely, the larger population in terms of number of hours that their families will spend in that facility, whatever we decide to do. And I debated whether the youth, sports and other extracurricular, groups were a right channel. Like there's really no recreational benefit outside of maybe the gym as part of the program, but it's more just a forum, right? To 10 of the people on their boards may have heard of the project, but there may be another 10 that are just, well, maybe we should be doing something. Why don't you consider this sort of thing? Where we heard, I mean, and I'm taking that really from some of the open forums, right? If you actually looked at who was in the room, that especially the one, I can't remember which one of you two, if not both, were there, but that one where we actually had seats filled in the Trotter Auditorium, like
Yeah,
there was definitely a sports contingent there, just with very directed questions.
they were.
So I can take that side of the house, but who else are we missing? Like, I don't know, Denise, if you like the Algonquin, like I know you're involved with Algonquin, right?
Mhm.
Obviously,
Yep.
that's only 40%-ish Southborough,
Mhm.
but there's clearly families that are at Algonquin that have moved on from the Southborough public schools that
Mhm.
still
That's right.
obviously very invested in the community. Like, do you think they're aware of the project? What is the outreach there without saturating the Northborough families, which they're gonna have to deal with their own project, right, a year from now?
It's really tough because when I tell you we have our APTO meeting, general meetings, we don't get anybody. We got like 2 people. We try very, very hard to, put it on a Parent Square, have Sean send it out. We just don't get anybody. We do a newsletter. We do a newsletter that we send out. We can put it in the newsletter. And if you thought, I don't think if we offered, for example, office hours, I don't think we'd get anybody. Honestly, I think it would be a big waste of time, especially when you look at, we send 1/3 of the students are from Southborough, and we're having a very difficult time getting anybody to pay attention. But to put it in the newsletter, whether people read the newsletter or not exactly sure, but willing to do that. Anything that we have, we can put on the newsletter. That would not be a problem.
Okay. All right. Are there any other organizations that you think we should be starting discussions with? Just to, again, have a forum with?
I think just internally, again, we talked about meeting with our faculty and staff again. I think we should, it's probably timely to do that in the next month, next 4 weeks. But internally, we can help kind of lead that work.
Okay. So you'll coordinate dates for that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. The next item I had on this particular topic is, I just lost my agenda. Hang on. Let's talk about social media and website. So what we have been doing is we do have a Facebook page. That's the only social media platform we've used, and we've used it to publish announcements. I think based on our prior conversations, we now need to have like a paragraph after every meeting, like not necessarily a subcommittee meeting, but like a full meeting. So use Monday night as an example. I think it's incumbent to just have a paragraph written of the committee discussed design build versus construction manager at risk. This is what the impact it has on the project. No one's probably going to care about that unless you're financially inclined or care about project phasing. Versus the committee also discussed the preliminary design of spaces in the ongoing discussions that the school administration is having, right? Like and, where to put the second grade, where to put the fifth grade, those sorts of things, right? Someone may be interested in that, including, the internal population that Greg was referring to. So my goal is that we use Facebook, our website distribution list, and actually use the website itself. Like if people don't follow distributions, but decide a month from now that they're going to come in and engage in the project, they can use that paragraph to get caught up. But I think the website deserves a further discussion. So I know Greg, I can just see him. He really,
You
I'll
sense
let
some
him weigh in
frustration.
first because we've
You
had
find-
some offline conversations on the website and just
Yeah.
how we use it.
So, so Cheryl Lepre, Mariana Silva, and I have spent a lot of time with the current website. Seeing what we can do, how do we make it work? And my conclusion, and I've done a lot of work with different websites and just through my career, is that it is not user friendly. It's not going to serve us well. The platform that I think the firm we contracted with, and it would take us a tremendous amount of effort to maintain that site. And I think part of the reason why it's not, I think there was, again, I think we received some feedback that it wasn't very helpful. People who visited. So my recommendation is that we move in a different direction. We have the domain name, and we can work with IT staff. We could do a redirect if we think it's wise to go in a different direction. I do have kind of an example. If Jason, you could give me sharing, if you wanted to just quickly, I just wanted to go over it quickly just to show what we could do, like if we went in a different direction, and then open it up for any conversation around what if this committee thinks it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and you should have access now, Craig.
Okay.
And while you pull it up, I think it's important that if we are going to go a different direction, that given we have expended funds, that we at least provide and go back. I think we've been afraid to go back to the original vendor because they were so rigid with some of their scope in terms of don't come back to us after a certain date or we're going to charge you an hourly rate. I think we need to go back to them and mention our difficulties, mention that we would not be a positive reference for a future project, and see if they can't take whatever vision you're going to show us here and find a different platform and transfer it over for us. So it doesn't, don't want workload shifting, especially when we've compensated someone to do a job that does not seem to have occurred.
Yeah, and I can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Yeah.
So Jason, my comment to that is that shifting the burden, there's a lot of burden with what we're doing now.
I get it.
And part of the conversation that internally Cheryl, Marianne and I have had is like, how can we make it manageable and accurate and updated, like just in time? So this was just a template kind of website we were working on. It's like sign up to receive contact, and it's just much easier for us to edit and add. So for example, this is just a Neary building calendar that we could go back and we could add every meeting that we've had and add the link to every agenda and the meeting minutes. People can look at the calendar as an agenda. They can then click on any meeting that we've had and see what happened and what took place. The agendas and minutes. So now that they're published to the town website, we would be able to create our own link to all the agendas and minutes and have them listed again. So people don't have to then go to the town website. We're able to add plans like the educational plan, preferred schematic report very easily. Jason, we could add the Facebook feed without that much challenge. And then again, like just the menus and adding like what's happened, what's the timeline, the team, some of the other things, like it's just easier for Mariana to be able to keep some of this updated.
I want to know where you went and grabbed all these pictures from.
Well, Zoom's a wonderful thing. So I'm
Clearly.
not saying that we're going to use these pictures, Roger. So, but anyway, so that's, document library. It's just easier for it's if the website, the firm that we used created the website and created something that really, unless they went with a completely different website platform, I don't think no matter what they do is going to work for us.
Greg,
And we've spent a lot of time internally trying to make it work.
No, I know. Go ahead,
Greg,
Roger.
I just wish that you had chosen a picture of me awake instead
Well,
of having nodded off, but maybe it was, I won't say
Well,
who I might
Roger.
have been listening to at that point, sorry.
Well, Roger, your digital footprint was pretty limited. And Denise's was a non-existent. which
I
is a good
told you,
thing.
remember I told you I hate pictures?
That's a good thing. So,
Remember I
anyway,
told you
so-
that when Joe
I'll stop
Rowley
you.
came to town?
Yes, I do remember. So, I think that that's my spiel. I think, I think we should. Anyway, open it up for
Okay.
back to the chair.
Look, I support any direction that is going to get information out. I was candidly disappointed that we could not make better use of what we've had to date, and that's not obviously a internal Southborough issue. And I think it would require a full committee discussion, just given that expenses had been incurred on it. But I think you can certainly bring that up in Monday night based on how the agenda is already posted in terms of our communication plan. And look, we've been blasted by public officials about the not that I agree with it about the website. And while I don't agree with the form in use of how they're communicating, I certainly can't sit here and defend that the website currently accurately depicts all the hard work that people have put into this and the thought that has gone into it. And that's really what we need to do, right? It's one thing if we weren't thinking about something and we're completely off base with a decision or a conclusion that the committee made, then people can have their, but if we're not providing it in a form that someone can digest it, and we know someone gets frustrated quickly, right? You go to a website, right? For other reasons and you can't find something, you just move on. Or right, if you're going shopping for something and you can't find it, you go to another vendor that you can find it more easily at, even before you get the price. So I think, yeah, I mean, Greg, I welcome you kind of just providing an overview, maybe not everyone's picture on Monday night, but just an overview of, it looked like that was in a Google type site, what it would take, if there's any additional costs that we need to consider, and really the ease of use of the team's time, and let the committee kind of give you feedback from there. I do think regardless of what platform we use, my biggest thing at this point is the why. Like, I think most people, I've not heard a lot of discussion of 2 versus 4 since the committee made their unanimous vote. I still hear just knock it down and we'll deal with it in 10 years when Finn's up. Like, that's right. So I think the why, right, in terms of what do we have for school enrollment? How did we get here? How is this a sustainable, I'm not talking about solar panels, a sustainable solution for the community moving forward that is not just being made based on what we see on a piece of paper today. Like, that's what we need to start getting out there and focus people. Like, that's got to hit them the second they open it up, as we move forward. So, comments from others on the website or social media? Okay. Are there any other ideas that we're not considering that we need to be considering in terms of spreading the word?
There probably are, but we may not have them at the moment, right?
Okay.
Well,
So I would just ask if anyone has any,
the only
right? Just raise them. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
the only other piece is, we talked about having a you know, a postcard and just canvassing the community, you know, people where people dine and shop and just again another something some people can grab and just get a little bit of information.
I will be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the postcards coming in the mail based on some recent ones, but especially when it costs money, but I could potentially be convinced, but not today.
A postcard in the sense that the information fits on a postcard. We wouldn't mail it. We would just provide stacks at these
You're
locations.
swaying my opinion. All right. Yeah, no, I think that's important.
And Jason, the other, sorry,
Okay.
I have them.
Very passionate about this today, Greg.
The so going back to a mailing, you know, and we don't control PAC or, you know, another outside organization to communicate. But I do, you know, I live in Shrewsbury and they do have quarterly mailings to the entire community. And it's enough, you know, it might be something that a group might want to consider, maybe in December or January.
Okay. Obviously not this group, but it again, it's up to someone in the community if they feel passionate about it one way or another to spearhead it.
Yep.
Roger, you're on mute.
Wait a minute. There we go. Regarding some suggested dates for the senior center, do we think that November or December are better months to potentially look at doing?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, who
Why did
knows,
I know-
right?
Why did I know you were gonna say that? But okay.
But that's what I'm saying. Don't feel like you have to do it yourself. We can delegate to, right, not only to the people on the screen here, but to others on the committee to help with
It's
those dates.
understood.
So
Okay.
I would plan a monthly series. You only have to advertise through December, but I would plan a monthly series, and hopefully if people stop visiting you, we've done our job, in my opinion, because either right in
Fair enough.
where they vote, you know, that's up to them, but our job is to make sure that they have exhausted all their questions and feedback. All right. We have no public here, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote. Denise,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
and I am I as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
See you Monday.
Bye-bye.
Folks.